You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, one and all, to the inaugural show called the SmackDown RunDown, where we will bring you some interesting discussions every Friday night after SmackDown airs. Because you might notice that any other podcast anywhere on the internet hardly ever talks about SmackDown. So that is what we will provide to you, our listeners. And I'm not going to be alone. But who am I? If you don't know my voice already, you should already know that I am the one and only Nikolai that you might hear on Ring the Bell every Tuesday night here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. And also, without further ado, here is my co-host, King J.
Yes. The King has arrived.
Yes, sir. We are here to discuss Friday Night SmackDown, whether it's after a pay-per-view, in between, or leading up to a pay-per-view, or anything else that may come up while we're discussing the show. And you can catch us in the AngryMarks.com chat room. In there we have myself, King J, our producer, Killer Kev, and there's also Sierra and Extreme Tony. Everybody, welcome one and all. So, Jeff, what do you say we get started on tonight's show?
Let's do it.
All right, well, just a little backstory. We tried to get this show underway last week, but there was a little bit of technical difficulties, so just want to run down last week's SmackDown briefly, just a little bit. 2 weeks prior on SmackDown, Cody Rhodes won the Intercontinental Championship from Ezekiel Jackson. So last week, there was a rematch, and impressively, Cody Rhodes had won the title with he retained the championship cleanly. Anything else from SmackDown, it really wasn't all that great. I mean, Del Rio beat Daniel Bryan again in a non-title match this time. But the biggest story was Mark Henry winning a 20-man over-the-top rope battle royal to become the number one contender. So earlier tonight on SmackDown, we had Bret Hart as the special guest general manager. Apparently, Teddy Long couldn't make it though. So instead, he decided to make Mark Henry versus Randy Orton for next week's episode of SmackDown. But instead, Christian came out. And of course, he's running his mouth, complaining about a rematch. And he brought out a piece of paper, a legal document that said no other superstar will get a title match before him. So I ask you, King J, are you ready for yet another Christian versus Randy Orton match for the title?
No, I really want the feud to be over. I mean, they've had good matches, and they'll probably keep having good matches, but it's really overkill by this point.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was feeling. And, I was hoping SummerSlam would be the last match. But as what's happening lately on Raw, everybody's complaining about getting their championship rematches after they lost the title. And Christian is, of course, back at it again. Back at it with his lawyers and saying, blah, 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 I want a rematch. So instead of Mark Henry, we now have Christian versus Randy Orton for the world title on SmackDown live next week. But it's not a regular match. What match do we have for next week? The steel cage match. Do you think that's going to be better than the no holds barred from SummerSlam?
No, I think that the no holds barred put like a new standard of what their matches could be. I think the steel cage will make things interesting, but something's probably going to happen during the match. Probably Mark Henry comes down to the ring, rips the door off, and attacks somebody again.
So you're saying someone's going to get their ass whipped?
Pretty much.
Oh man, I'm in the same boat. As much as I like Christian versus Randy Orton for the past 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is now, I'm losing track. But as much as I enjoy it, it's getting overkill. And in a steel cage, I don't know. Last time there was a steel cage, like you said, Mark Henry had ripped the door off and just beat the shit out of somebody. He could very well do it again because he came out during that promo with Christian and Bret Hart, and he looked visibly upset that he's not getting his title match, and he was complaining, for 15 years I've been with this company, and I'm continuously, this is blatant disrespect. I earned my title opportunity. If I don't get it, somebody's going to get hurt.
And he legitimately has a claim this time. He won the number 1 contendership. So he should be the next person in line after Christian gets his rematch.
Yeah, exactly. Because Christian wasn't even on SmackDown last week.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost as if, we're saying, all right, Christian is too hurt to compete. But all of a sudden he comes out and he's okay. So he wants his rematch. Oh, God. Another match. I'm not looking forward to it, but I am looking forward to next week's live episode of SmackDown.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I wonder how they're going to incorporate the Raw superstars with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really surprising that they would do it.
Sure.
But, at this time of year, normally in October is when they have a season premiere of SmackDown. Because, that's when it went, that's when it went to My Network TV. 2 years later, it comes on Sci-Fi, and that was live.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're having another live episode, but instead it's on Tuesday, not Friday. The live episode is when they tape the show. So that's interesting.
And they probably did that because they filmed NXT before it, and they probably don't want to film that before Raw.
True, but I don't know. I would have thought they would have done it in October when they had their quote-unquote season premiere, but you never know. NXT is still kicking around. Even Joey Styles had mentioned it on Twitter where he said it's in its 26th week of NXT. Longer than any other season. I mean, I can't believe that show's still going.
I'm still trying to figure out why. And supposedly WWE feels that if they keep it going, it might get picked up by a network. That show was never coming back. Just let it die like you let everything else die.
Exactly. It died off of Sci-Fi, as a matter of fact, because they didn't want it anymore. They weren't getting any ratings, so why not kill it, But,
they lost ratings probably midway through the second season.
Yeah. It especially back with the all-girl cast.
Oh God, that was bad.
But we digress. Back to SmackDown.
Yeah.
After Mark Henry came out, Sheamus decided to show up and tell a little story about his good old Uncle Mark O'Connor. Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing with the bull and the castrating.
Yeah. I was really wondering where he was going with it. Wasn't the best story I've heard, It was a good bedtime story. It was putting me to sleep.
I think that was just awkward, and they just wanted to fill up time.
Yeah, it seemed very awkward because, everybody was sitting. Nobody really got the joke. You know, that's what I hate about SmackDown sometimes. It's finished tape, so when, you know, the crowd's sitting on their hands, by the time the show airs, they have a piped-in crowd. So
Right.
we're supposed to believe that we like this or something? I don't know. But anyways, Christian versus Daniel Bryan was the first match of the night. And, yeah, if anybody follows SmackDown and pay-per-views lately, this is Daniel Bryan's fourth loss in a row. And
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to believe that he's the next contender down the line.
And see, that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. He's Mr. Money in the Bank, and he has all these awesome matches, but he loses every single one of them. You're basically saying that we're giving him something important, but he's still going to job to us. But at the same time, they'll probably wait until like January and then start pushing him, because right now they want him to keep losing so people feel bad for him, and then build him up to be something great from like January till WrestleMania, which completely defeats the purpose. You want to build him up now, so by the time that comes around, he can be right there ready.
Right. But at that point, you know, people are going to start giving up on Daniel Bryan. I mean, I can see why they want to give him the MVP treatment. You know, when MVP was on his losing streak and everybody started feeling bad for him and then he turned face. But Bryan's already a baby face. I don't know. I don't like this method. We're supposed to love, you know, we love Daniel Bryan, but, you know, I mean, he loses to Del Rio on SmackDown, Barrett on a pay-per-view, Del Rio again, and then Christian. So, I mean, you might as well start Daniel Bryan at the bottom. Put him with jobbers, because you know, that's what they're doing with Brodus Clay on Superstars every week. They're putting him with jobbers. You know, they're extremely boring matches, so that's a bad comparison.
Right.
But, I mean, later on, the next match, actually, on SmackDown, conveniently, that never happened, was Wade Barrett, and he was supposed to face off against a jobber, but he just said it, you know, he finds it insulting to himself, and he just walked away from the match.
Yeah, and I actually like that he did that, because supposedly they're letting him go back to his old ways from SCW, where he was just about making money and winning titles, which I think is a cool concept. But at the same time, you just had him beat Mr. Money in the Bank at your third biggest pay-per-view of the year, and then he goes on to wrestle all these jobbers, and then all of a sudden he walks away. It's like, what are you going to do with him?
Right. I mean, I like the idea of, I do like that too, of Wade Barrett just walking away, basically saying there's demeaning to him for facing jobbers.
Yeah. But one fear that I do have is that they might end up trying to make him be somebody's, someone like paying him off to do hits on people or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know how WWE tends to misuse people.
Oh, yeah. We all know that. So, the next match on the card was, according to the spoilers, was so bad and so botched that they had to redo it. And the way it came across on TV was so bad and so boring, I wish they scrapped it all together. Sin Cara versus Heath Slater. And I swear that was about a 90-second match.
Wait, you counted 90 seconds? I counted like 15. Because I looked down for 1 second and then the match was over.
No, that's a Brodus Clay match. 15 seconds. This one actually, you know, lasted about a minute. Maybe I was being generous with the 90 seconds, but it was a good 60 seconds. How's that? It was just terrible. Terrible.
And that's the thing. Since they split up Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater, this is the first time I think we've seen Heath Slater.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, he had a match against Sheamus last night on Superstars, and that actually came out well. I mean, I don't hate Slater at all. I mean, I love watching him lose.
yeah.
But, I don't hate him as a character. I like his character because he's cocky and everybody already hates him as a heel. He doesn't need to do anything. He's already the heel.
Yeah, I like Heath Slater too. I think to wrestle Sin Cara, you need certain people to be his opponents, because having him go up against like someone random like Heath Slater isn't really building him up. He had one feud, and that lasted all of 3 weeks with Chavo, and then he got fired.
Yeah, that was basically an afterthought. But this match, Sin Cara and Slater, is an afterthought in my mind now because it's forgettable. It really doesn't do anything. The only thing it pushed was Sin Cara to get the win, and they made the announcement that on next week's live SmackDown, it will be Sin Cara versus Alberto Del Rio. I'm hoping for the best because right now they're having some conflict with the man under the mask, Mystico. Apparently they're not using him, and they might not use him again because they're just going with Hunico. But after how bad tonight's match was, it's really going to be interesting to see who they're going to use.
Yeah, and if they use the regular Mystico, who knows how that's going to go versus Alberto, since they hate each other.
I just hope that they find a solution to that problem, and soon.
True. And I think another thing, they need an actual interpreter for Sin Cara so he can understand people.
Mm-hmm. So I know Mystico, is not fluent in English, but how about Hunico? Like, is there any word like can he, is he bilingual? Can he understand English too, or?
I think he can speak a little bit of English.
Oh, okay. But you could tell who is who because Hunico, when he does his springboards, he hesitates. Sin Cara does it on with a quick snap, just like that. And the other one, he's a little chubbier and chunkier. And what bothers me is that they actually point that out on commentary. Say, Sin Cara's looking a little buffer, looking a little huskier. But you don't call attention to that.
Exactly.
Either that, or they don't know.
The Spanish announcers do it too.
So that's bad in the department. But nobody's saying that the commentary is good lately. I know I'm not.
Yeah.
So the next match on the card was Randy Orton versus Ted DiBiase in a non-title match. And this match came up because of last week. Orton was in the ring, and Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase came out to, tell Randy Orton that either one was going to win the Battle Royal. But Randy Orton struck with an RKO on Ted DiBiase. That set up tonight's match. And in my opinion, this was a good match. It wasn't great, but, it kept the show going. And I always find it weird whenever they put the world champion in a match in the middle of the show.
Yeah, they do that a lot. I don't know why, but they do. And I also think that this was one of Ted's best matches since he was feuding with Goldust.
All I know is the ending to this match, I think, was good. The setup that came with it. Orton went for the RKO, but DiBiase countered into Dream Street, but Randy Orton had blocked it. And I love Ted DiBiase's little sneak attack clothesline. You know, he chases after him, bounces the ropes after him, and then as soon as they turn around, clothesline. That happened once in the match, but when he tried it again, Orton ducked it and hit the RKO, and I thought that was just a beautiful setup to the end.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. And the post-match was pretty decent too.
Yeah. What I didn't like was Cody Rhodes taking into his own accord to pick up Ted DiBiase and then plant him with crossroads and put a paper bag on his head. Anybody who's heard me speak on Ring the Bell on Tuesday nights has heard me state my my hatred for tag teams that split up that they have to attack each other. I hate that. I seriously hate that when a team or a tandem or a stable splits up and they have to attack each other in order to split up. That irritates me because they do it all the time.
See, it wouldn't bother me if they did it like every couple years, but they do it with every single tag team. And the thing was, with Ted and Cody, they're supposed to be best friends. Cody's supposed to be helping Ted, and then he just beats him up, which is supposed to make Ted a face and give him this big push. But Ted has no charisma. Let's be honest. I like Ted, I like Cody, but Ted has no charisma.
Yeah. And, if Ted DiBiase had the paper bag on his head, he could eat his way out, because that would make him eat his what he eats, as dry as a paper bag. And it's sad to say, but he does need Cody Rhodes, because Cody's been having all this promo time. He's the Intercontinental Champion, for God's sake. You know, and just like Sierra says in the Angry Marks chat, you know, they need to find something to do with Ted DiBiase instead of following Cody Rhodes around, because it's not getting him anywhere. And now Cody Rhodes basically just dumped him.
Exactly.
And he basically had his career resurrected, which Cody pointed out, ever since going to SmackDown. You know, only slightly, but it did go up a little, you know, from having Maurice trail around him to wearing the $1 million belt that did nothing. And then now he's with Cody Rhodes, who's having all this star power, shine time, and then now he's dumped.
Yeah, they need to give him a manager that can uplift him, not someone who be out there for themselves. Especially if you're going to push him as a face, because he's been a heel his whole career.
I think Ted DiBiase was at its highest when he debuted. You know, he was talking about how he's priceless, and then, you know, the way he debuted was so much better. You know, he went for the tag team titles against Cody Rhodes and Hardcore Holly, and it turned out that Rhodes was with DiBiase. I mean, I loved that angle. And
exactly.
Always hot when they first came in, and then they died down way too fast.
Yeah, it did. And they could have been one of the great tag teams of today, but, you know, Vince and his tag teams don't stay around very long.
Well, moving on to the show in yet another forgettable match. God, it feels like there's a lot of them this week. Tamina versus Kelly Kelly in another non-title match, of course.
Okay.
When did Kelly Kelly become a giant killer?
I don't know. But see, here's the thing. I don't hate Kelly Kelly. I never hated Kelly Kelly. I tried to get behind Kelly Kelly, but there's nothing there besides the screaming, the stink faces, and the smacking your opponent's head into the mat while you scream some more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The bad thing is she made Tamina look like Tamina did when she first debuted. And over the past few months, Tamina had been picking up some momentum, working with Alicia Fox and Natalia on SmackDown, so she was getting better. And Kelly brought her down because Kelly doesn't work well with most people.
Mm.
If you're bigger than her or smaller than her, you're bound to have a pretty bad match.
Right. I was happy for Kelly when she won the Diva title. I mean, 5 years in the business, or in the company, I think it was her time. Keep it off of Brie Bella and Eve Torres, but it's enough. I mean, she defeated Beth Phoenix on pay-per-view. She defeated the Bellas I don't know how many times. Now she's beaten Tamina, who really has gone nowhere at all.
She really hasn't. It's sad.
It is, because she could have been so dominant.
And you would have thought that with someone like her, she's been having all these good matches, that you would build her up as like the second top heel on SmackDown, or the third top heel on SmackDown behind Alicia.
Yeah. And that's also the problem, because with the tag team titles and the Diva title that are interchangeable between both shows, I hate that they keep them on Raw. Raw superstars are tag team champions. A Raw Diva is the Divas champion. I mean, switch it up a little bit. Come on. Like, we know they can switch on both shows, but you're not making us believe it when they're only on Raw.
Exactly. And right now you're having Kelly appear on both shows, but it would make sense to have Beth being on Raw, lay out all the chicks on Raw week by week after Kelly beats them in a match to give Kelly more of a push, have Beth come out there, attack her opponents, and stare down with her, or have her go to SmackDown, have Natalya do that, instead of having them two stand on stage and clap for her like they actually care, because we know they don't. And then the SmackDown before Night of Champions, they're going to be like, oh, one of them gets a title match. Why should I care?
The only way I really would have been interested in this match tonight is if we had an actual promo in the ring or on the stage, but instead we got like a little cutout clip of Natalya saying, "Look at Kelly. She's a WWE Barbie doll. I don't play with dolls." I mean, that could have came out stronger if she came out to the stage and said that.
Exactly. And not only that, you keep losing to these so-called Barbie dolls week after week after week.
Right.
If
when
you're supposed to be...
they're looking more like Barbie dolls.
It's like, hello, if you're going to be the number 2 top heel, you need, and you're sick of all these quote-unquote Barbie dolls, you need to attack each and every one of them chicks to where it's only you, Beth, and Kelly left. Then one of you gets the belt off of her, and then have all them other chicks trying to come at y'all to get the belt back.
I'm almost forgetting that Natalya had to be the shaky chick at one point. That's how big it feels right now.
Exactly.
Ugh.
And you think a former women's champion and a former Divas champion could get together and do more than stand on the top of a ramp and clap. And then finally decide to cut a promo that was the driest doggone promo. And we know Beth has a fire inside of her that she could have lit up in that promo, and Natalya could be doing something. I don't know what, but she could be doing something.
Well, I think that's enough talk about the Divas, so let's move on to the giants of the show.
Can we skip this?
Great Khali versus Ezekiel Jackson, and I think it's, to my knowledge, this is the first time they've ever faced off one-on-one.
It is.
The only interesting parts of this match was Jinder Mahal was ringside, and at one point he jumped up on the apron to attack Zeke, and then Khali accidentally gave him the little brain chop on the head, and Zeke actually lifted up Khali for the torture rack. So that was impressive.
Yeah, that was interesting. But the funny thing is, because once WWE brought Jinder up, they realized that he was way too green. That's why we get all these Khali matches.
Well, you really can't tell how Jinder was in the ring because he only faced off against guys like Yoshikatsu and
Trent Beretta.
That's right. And his finisher was a full Nelson slam. I mean, damn.
True.
Hardcore Holly and Test did that.
Very true. But see, my only issue with it is how much longer is he really going to be around? Because, I mean, he's over with the crowd, but not that over to where you see him winning the world title within the next 6 months, 6 to 18 months. You don't see him winning the world title because they gave him 3 to 4 moves and then told him, oh, go out there and get torture rack over. And then go out there and smile and be happy and be the token happy black man on the roster to be the opposite of Ron and Mark who are going around attacking people every week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see him going anywhere.
No, and it looks like he's just going to get, the mid-card tiny push for a while. But we mentioned Mark, so we might as well move on to the main event of the evening, which was Mark Henry versus Sheamus in a SummerSlam rematch. So do you think this match was better or worse than the SummerSlam match itself?
I think it was good. I don't think it was as good as the one from SummerSlam.
Yeah. I'd have to agree. It was good in itself. Let's see. The only interesting part was in the middle of the match, Sheamus. Mark Henry had Sheamus up in a military purse, and Sheamus turned it into a DDT.
Yeah.
It looked like something that would happen with a lightweight.
Yeah.
Cruiser. But Sheamus got a little bit of revenge in this match. Mark Henry was ripping apart the announce table, and Sheamus had snuck up behind him, hit him with the brogue kick, got in the ring, and Mark Henry was counted out, just like at SummerSlam that happened in the...
Yeah, so at some point, the two of them are going to have another match, and someone needs to pin or submit the other one to make this at all interesting. And I think more than anything, Mark needs the win if it happens before Night of Champions.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The only problem is, when do they have the match? I mean, do they have it the week before the pay-per-view or after the pay-per-view or what? Because at the end of this, even though Mark Henry was counted out, the match, they didn't stop fighting.
Sure.
The end result was Mark Henry giving Sheamus a World's Strongest Slam on the steel steps. So,
right.
I don't know. It looks they're definitely going to continue this because you need a rubber match. They always do.
And then I'm also kind of worried about going into Night of Champions, Mark versus Randy, how that's going to play out. Because, Randy only puts over and works well with people who he wants to, and Mark Henry happens to not fall in that category.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with with those two, if they're going to have another match sooner than later. But as you predicted, and I have to agree. If they do have another match, Mark Henry has to go over because they need to put him over as the strong man. He's going for the title. Presumably that will be Night of Champions, but as we learned earlier tonight, that no other superstar can get a title match before Christian.
Exactly.
So, with that said, what do you say we just look ahead into next week's SmackDown, which will be live? Give me your thoughts on Alberto Del Rio versus Sin Cara.
God, I hope this is a good match. And no, I'm being serious because you don't know which Sin Cara they're going to use. And then, depending on which one, what's Alberto Del Rio's move going to be? Because if it's Mystico, he's going to be a whole lot rougher than he would with anybody else.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the real question should be which kind of Sin Cara are we going to get? That's really the real question. Is it Del Rio versus Mystico or Del Rio versus Clinico? But no matter who it is, Sierra says in the chat room that Del Rio will stretch him out. So yeah. I don't think there's which one it is.
True.
But hands down, Del Rio has to win. He's the WWE champion after all, and whichever Sin Cara we get, I don't think he deserves a win over Del Rio.
Exactly. And another thing I noticed, they never really played up that he lost when he lost his first match. When Sin Cara lost his first match.
Sin Cara only lost one match, right?
Technically, yeah, he only lost one. But they never played. But they, how when someone loses their first match, they always make it a big deal.
Right. All right, well, what do you say about Christian versus Randy Orton inside of the steel cage match?
I think it'll be interesting. They'll probably have Christian trying to escape most of the match and Orton trying to corner him and pound on him. Then Christian does something quote unquote underhanded and gets the upper hand. But I think there'll probably be some swerve ending, like Mark coming out there again, and then probably Sheamus coming out there and it becoming some form of organized chaos that the WWE is so well known for.
Right. Well, the way I see it, I think you're going to get another good match from these two. In my opinion, it's not going to be the best, but we can only wait and find out. Obviously, Christian's going to have the upper hand most of the time. Orton's going to pull him off the cage, pull him out of the door. They're going to do superplex off the top of the cage or something.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to hit, Christian's probably going to get the kill switch, but he won't win. Orton will pop up with an RKO and win without selling.
Yeah. The one thing Orton is so good for.
Yeah. I'm done. I'm done, Christian and Orton. No more.
Yeah. They need to find something else for Randy Orton and Christian both to do. It doesn't involve the other.
They need to move on, as a lot of people would say.
Because, there are so many people on the roster that you could probably have Christian feud with. Like, you could have him and Sheamus go at it for a little bit. Or have him have a program with somebody else. No one comes to mind. off the top of my head because they're not really pushing anybody right now.
Now that I think about it, I'm a little upset that I had Christian versus Daniel Bryan on SmackDown tonight because I wish they would have saved that for a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that probably would have been a good feud. If they decided to, that could have been a pretty decent feud.
Right. I would have actually enjoyed that. But, I mean, you can't do that with this pay-per-view coming up because it is Night of Champions and every match, well, from what I heard, nearly every match will be a title match. Basically, all the titles are on the line, but I think they're going to have just a standard match in between.
Yeah. And I wonder if the tag team champions are going to show up on SmackDown on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me just bring up that little quick fact. Since, they are interchangeable with SmackDown, do you like the new tag team champions of Evan Bourne and Kofi Kingston?
I think it's a good team. I'm happy Evan finally won his first title. I mean, this gives him and Kofi both something to do, which I guess is a good thing. But I really hope that if they have them, that they have them going on both shows and maybe possibly build up a feud with the Usos. But I don't know how that would go because you know how WWE is about having face versus face.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that they show up on SmackDown because that would have been cool. That would be cool to see, I mean, I'm happy for Evan Bourne. It's his first title. Why not be the tag team championship, I mean, you don't expect him to be the United States champion right away.
Right.
I'm glad because it gives Kofi something to do because he's been doing nothing but jobbing, which in turn, in reality, he's only been jobbing when he's a champion. So he'll probably be jobbing more a lot now that he's a tag team champion.
Hopefully, he starts winning. So
that's it for our SmackDown talk. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we go?
No, just thanks for letting me co-host the show with you.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, this is what we do at Angry Marks. We give everybody a chance to speak, and we provide tons of shows for everybody to listen to. That's a complete variety.
Yeah.
So, with that said, that will do it for our show, the SmackDown Rundown. Tune in next week as we will be broadcast along with Ring the Bell, since SmackDown will be live on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, and then Ring the Bell will start airing at 10 o'clock right after. So catch us there on the AngryMarks Podcast Network. And as always, remember, we sacrifice our Friday nights so you don't have to. Good night, everybody.